On March 20th, 2024, a solo, wave-based PvM challenge similar akin to the Inferno was released in old-school RuneScape, called the Fortis Colosseum. However, seeing as though I suffer from crippling Stage 4 procrastination, I did not hop into it until mid-July. And after 3 weeks and 139 deaths, I achieved my first completion on August 8th of that year. I fell in love with the content during this grind, and after a while it became my favorite piece of content in the game, to the point that I joined the We Do Raids Discord server to join in helping others achieve their first quiver as well, focusing primarily on zero damage solves. Since then, the server and its resources have evolved tremendously, now with a complete comprehensive Colosseum guide, numerous different strategies on inventory management for a wide variety of budgets, and even a full-on Soul Heredit simulation coded by the god himself, Supalosa. However, there's one constant that all learners of this content brick wall themselves into, and a lot of the time aren't even aware they're doing anything wrong. The Invocation system. A luck-based group of modifiers that you are forced to pick upon completing a wave, making it so each run is unique and requires the player to play differently each attempt they make. Since the Invocation system requires a little bit of the old random number generator, I commonly see screenshots like this.
Been a while since I've had a one this bad. These invos at wave 4, is it bad to just claim and restart to avoid dealing with them for the rest of the waves ? Frailty 3 worry. Is this just a reset? But why frown? Angry gamer. We resting here? Truly awful invos this run. Quite unfortunate.
Now what if I were to tell you, there's significantly less RNG influence than you might think, and most of those bad invocation choices are completely avoidable. Allow me to help you to add a new skill to your Colosseum repertoire, Invocation juggling. When a gamer hops into the Colosseum for the first time, they will, reliably, at one point or another, ask 3 questions. 1. What inventory setup should I run on X budget? 2. What pillar is the best pillar for learning? 3. What are the best invocations? The answer you get to these questions largely depends on the person who answers, and invocations are no exception. There will always be some similarities, but the entirety of the tier list of their invocations will depend on their comfort level, their playstyle, and their preference, not necessarily yours. However, when most learners get one of these tier lists, they default into the same way of thinking. Pick only the best invocation presented to me every wave. What that can lead to is screenshots like you saw at the beginning of the video, where Blasphemy and Myopia are both level 3 at the beginning of wave 7, and they're presented with Quartet, Red Flag, and Bees, completely bricking the run. In order to make the invocation system work for you, it requires changing the way you think. Allow me to use my tier list as an example, but instead of using a simple lettering system, we're going to rename the tiers a bit. At the top, we will call this tier Freebies, invocations that hardly change the way I play at all. These invocations I will always take at level 1 without exception. This is, of course, Blasphemy and Myopia. The tier below that we will call Runnable, invocations that slightly change the way I play, but are perfectly fine to select at level 1 at any given moment in the run. These invocations include Solar Flare, which I can take all 3 times, Frailty I could take 3 times, but I'd rather only take it twice, and Doom, which I can comfortably take twice. If I took Doom 3 times, I would more than likely mysteriously lose money from my coffer before the run is over. The tier below that we will call Somewhat Runnable, invocations that don't really change the way I play, but are insanely punishing, potentially run-ending if I make a mistake. These invocations include Volatility, which I can take 3 times, Relentless, which I can take 3 times but would rather not, and Manti Mayhem, which I can take twice. I would love to be able to confidently say that I can take Manti Mayhem 3 because it's one of my favorite invocations, but alas, it usually teleports me back to the main lobby with my wallet slightly lighter. The tier below that we will call Last Resort, invocations I will avoid unless there are literally no better options, and it's on the final wave that these invocations can be offered. These invocations include Quartet, Re-entry, and Totemic. Quartet is an invocation that you think is harmless until you reach Soul, after which you will never choose it ever again. Re-entry can completely brick solves if your DPS is less than desirable, and Totemic is literally only viable on Soul. And finally, at the bottom is Completely Avoid, invocations that I will never pick under any circumstances. These invocations include Dynamic Duo, Red Flag, and Bees. Dynamic Duo is a coin flip. Either it's completely free, and you hardly notice it, or it gives you a pillar stack that you can't solve without tanking at least one hit. I don't like taking that coin flip, so I will never take Duo. I'm not good enough at the game to run red flag without getting right hooked, and Bees makes you want to swallow a fork horizontally. Now you may notice that on this tier list I only have the level 1 invocations listed, and there's a reason for that. Beginning at Wave 2, all of the invocations you haven't chosen aside from Red Flag and Dynamic Duo are written on a single piece of paper and thrown into a virtual hat. Each of those invocations are equally as likely to be chosen as the other. To illustrate this, let's remove Red Flag and Dynamic Duo from the tier list. The invocations you have chosen are written on several pieces of paper and added to the same hat. These invocations are much more likely to be chosen over the invocations you haven't chosen yet. It's why a lot of the time you very commonly see Blasphemy 2 presented to you on Wave 2. After you've chosen an invocation 3 times, or from relevant invocations once, it gets removed from the hat completely, eliminating any chance of choosing it again. Now why is that important? Since those high-level invocations have such a high chance of appearing, you can abuse that. Let's say, as an example, a learner picks Blasphemy Wave 1. And at the beginning of Wave 2, the learner is presented with Blasphemy 2, Frailty, and Solar Flare. The learner probably thinks something along the lines of, oh, I don't want to have to pick Frailty 3 later, and I don't want to deal with Solar Flare this early, so I'll pick Blasphemy 2. Frailty and Solar Flare are shuffled back into the hat, and Blasphemy gains an even greater chance of being selected. Wave 2 is completed, and at the beginning of Wave 3, the invocations they're presented with are Blasphemy 3, Doom, and Manti Mayhem. The thought process is probably now, it's still too early for Doom, and the last time I picked Manti Mayhem I made a mistake and perished for it, so I will pick Blasphemy again. Blasphemy 3 is chosen, and thus is completely removed from the hat, causing every single invocation to have the same weighting, aside from Blasphemy. One freebie is completely gone, which a lot of the time means this learner's Wave 4 will look like this. You have one invocation completely maxed out, and now you have to reset. Let's say the learner instead picks Solar Flare on Wave 2. Solar Flare now has increased weighting, and Blasphemy still has increased weighting. So now you have 2 invocations that have a higher chance of appearing, lowering your chances of getting run-ending invocations even further. Let's say the same Wave 3 shows up, but they pick Doom instead. Now Doom is added to the high weighting, and the learner's trump card, Blasphemy, is still level 1. The reason why this is so important, especially early, is specifically because you can only choose those freebie invocations 3 times apiece, and then they're gone, unable to bail you out for the rest of the run. And starting Wave 7, 2 troublemakers are added into the hat, Dynamic Duo and Red Flag. And if you've only chosen Blasphemy and Myopia 3 times in the first 6 waves, the tier list in question will now look like this. Your freebies are completely gone, and now 2 incredibly undesirable invocations have been added, causing your Wave 7 to very commonly look like this. The point I'm trying to get at is this. You want to have chosen as many level 1 invocations as you can early, so you can use their level 2 and 3 variants to bail you out of some really bad invocation choices late. Remember, Colosseum is 12 waves, so you need to be able to choose enough invocations to make it through all 12 waves. Blasphemy and Myopia can only make it through 6. One thing that could help you is physically pulling up the list of every single invocation including level 3s. Then pick every single invocation from that list that you would pick in a run no matter what situation or wave, and then count them. The number you get needs to be at or exceed 12. If it's 12 to 15, you're treading unrealistic waters. If I were to compare it to poker, it'd be like joining a poker table, but folding every single hand that doesn't have a chance at getting a royal flush. The difference being, if you get that royal flush in the Colosseum, without the proper experience, you can still easily lose the hand. For what it's worth, my number is 21. What I'm trying to get at with all of this anecdotal nonsense is that you don't need a royal flush to win a poker hand. Just like you don't need the best invocations to get a quiver. So instead of only trying to get the cards you want, you'll gain much more experience with the later waves and even Sol himself if you make the most out of the cards you're dealt. So we know the method, now let's put it into practice with a run-through. Wave 1 is always Blasphemy, Relentless, and Frailty. Blasphemy is a no-brainer. Wave 2 actually gave me a pretty tough choice. I was tempted to go Blasphemy, but I knew this was more than doable. I opted for Volatility over Manti Mayhem because I can pick this 3 times. Though it is admittedly very annoying to deal with it for pretty much the entire run, but I know I can. Wave 3 more or less gave me the exact same choice in a slightly different order. Again, I was tempted to go Blasphemy, but I locked Manti Mayhem to give me another cushion, because I can pick that one more time on a bad wave selection. Wave 4 gave me a no-brainer in my eyes. Volatility 2 is more or less the exact same as Volatility 1, I can only pick Manti Mayhem one more time, and Bees is beyond trash. Volatility, hands down. Wave 5 was another no-brainer. There's no reason to use another Blasphemy freebie. Totemic is garbage, and Solar Flare I can take 3 times with little issue. Solar Flare for sure. Wave 6 was a complete toss-up, actually a very difficult choice. Taking Volatility 3 off the table completely here gives me a better chance of nabbing Myopia before Soul. However, Wave 6 can give some notoriously dicey spawns which can potentially cause you to take a lot of extra damage from the Volatility 3 rag tiles. Manti Mayhem 2 is the safest choice to finish the wave itself, even if it unlocks Manti Mayhem 3, which now has a very high chance of appearing for the rest of the run. And Quartet is completely and utterly out of the question, especially with Volatility. I ended up going with Manti Mayhem. Wave 7 decided to give me another chance to pick Volatility 3. Wave 7 is a fairly easy wave, so I felt confident at this point locking Volatility 3. Manti Mayhem 3 is unpickable for me because I'm bad, and I didn't think Relentless had as high a value as knocking Volatility off my list. In retrospect, I probably should have picked Relentless. Picking Relentless here would have guaranteed that I get to Soul, assuming only my picked invocations are chosen for the rest of the run. Wave 8 is the easiest choice since Wave 1, Blasphemy. Again, Manti Mayhem 3 is not feasible for me, and it's far too early for re-entry. Wave 9 gives me another easy choice. Solar Flare 2 is, in some cases, easier to deal with than Solar Flare 1. Manti Mayhem 3 rags me again, and Quartet is still far beyond trash. Wave 10 basically said, "Are you sure you don't want Relentless?" And this time, I will absolutely take it. I'd like to point out Manti Mayhem 3 has been in my list 4 waves in a row. This is not uncommon for a level 3 invocation, and Bees sucks. Wave 11 brilliantly demonstrates why I save picking Blasphemy until I absolutely need it. Completely saved the run. And because of it, I dodged both Manti Mayhem 3, now if I'm being honest, 5 times in a row is a little bit ridiculous, and Totemic, which is absolutely trash before Soul. This unfortunately means Myopia is out of the question, which is the sole reason why I bring Blade of Saildor as well as the Noxious Halberd as potential weapons for Soul. Wave 12. Soul Heredit. I knew there was a decently high chance that my choices would look something like this. It's worth noting that the following invocations are completely removed from the table on Wave 12. Myopia, Manti Mayhem, Dynamic Duo, Red Flag, and Re-Entry. That means my only available invocations were Solar Flare 3 and Relentless, both with high weighting, and Doom, Frailty, Totemic, and Quartet. Best case scenario, I would have chosen Doom, but I'll pick Relentless over Solar Flare 3 to make moving around the room a little bit safer. And for those that are curious, I did indeed defeat Soul. Here are my final invocations, from left to right: Manti Mayhem 2, Volatility 3, Blasphemy 3, Relentless 2, and Solar Flare 2. And something else to consider, my invocation choices this run were fairly average. If anything, a little bit unlucky. There might be some people who think that I simply cherry-picked that run, and am conveniently leaving out all of the other times I reset because of bad invocation choices. And you know what? They're right. I have no way to prove that on my first attempt to get that run through I perished on Wave 6 to a double south misplay, or my second attempt on Wave 7 to a single Manticore, or my third attempt on Wave 8 because I stepped out on the wrong tile, or my fourth attempt on Wave 6 because I am smooth in the brain, or my fifth attempt on Wave 10 because I took too long dealing with Fremenix, or my sixth attempt on Wave 11 because I misplayed the Fremenix again, or my seventh attempt on Wave 5 because my brain lagged, and certainly not my 8th attempt on Wave 11 because I misflicked this stack twice and suicided, in-game of course. All sarcasm aside, what do all of those attempts have in common? I didn't lose those runs because I left early, I lost those runs because I made a mistake. In fact, throughout all of my derusting and practice for recording footage for this video, I only got screwed over on my invocation choices once, where I did everything that I'm practicing in this video correctly, and got Red Flag, Dynamic Duo, and Totemic on Wave 9. I didn't reset, however, I tried to take Duo, and on Wave 11... yeah. That being said, this method is not 100% foolproof. You can absolutely still get RNG'd into bad invocation choices even when you're picking everything correctly. What this method does do, however, is it gives you a much greater chance to make it to those later waves and exposes you to those high-stress situations at a greater level of frequency. Now that this video is drawing to a close, here are the key points I want you to take away from it. 1. Take as many low-level invocations as you can early. 2. Increase your pool of runnable invocations by way of exposing yourself to them. Try them out, try getting used to them. Having a bigger pool of invocations you can choose from increases your chances of making it to the later waves. 3. It's better to lose the run from a mistake you can learn from than from leaving early and learning nothing. And 4. You don't need the perfect group of invocations to get a quiver. And now it's your turn. Gear up, hop in the Colosseum, pick the invocations, and get that quiver. And if you perish, learn something from it. Record your run, look at what you did wrong, but don't dwell on it. Shake it off, and go back in. You can do it. I know you can do it. And when you finally get the quiver, there's not many better feelings in this game. I'd like to thank the gamers at We Do Raids who helped me with my first quiver, as well as helping so many others with theirs. Have a lovely rest of your day, and good luck.